So buddy, you must have noticed that I stupidly have launched my video at midnight on Thursday.
Yeah, oh no.
The question is, do we film another one for Friday? Because you reckon we do?
Yeah, we have to.
Don't let anyone down. We've got our schedule. We gave a bonus video. You know we filmed that for like 2 days straight and we put loads of work into that, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So what's today's video's title then? Brilliant. Well done, Nick. That's fantastic. That's the one we're going to go with then. So we've got 0 planned and we need to come up with something, right?
Yeah.
Should I check my Instagram and my YouTube and see if anyone's left a comment that I could answer? Let's do that. This is a really interesting comment, mate. This one says, rent to rent is being advertised as the next big thing. The whole £500 per property profit, forget it. We've just finished changing a 5-bed into a 6-bed, should generate £1,300 a month. Ask for details if anyone wants to know more, but if your profit is in the last room, it's a bad business model. Mark, I'd love to have a call with you at some point. That's a comment from Lee Smith. Should we do something about rent to rents today? Yeah. And the risks? There we go. So we're going to do rent to rents and the risks of rent to rents. Let's get into it. Hi guys and welcome to Friday. This is my second Friday vlog of this week because as you know I accidentally put up a video and it released at midnight on Wednesday night. So I'm really sorry about that. I'm sorry that it means that we're going to have to do it all over again, but for you it means we're going to have another video. And today we're going to be answering that comment about rent to rents and going through why they might be a little bit risky. But we've come down here to Oxfordshire to a place called the Barley Mow just by the River Thames. We're going to have some food and me and Nick we're going to have a quick chat about rent to rents. Nick's looking to get into property investment, aren't you, Nick? Come on, you can give us some words. There we go, he is alive. We'll head in, we're gonna have a talk about it. I'm gonna tell Nick about what rent to rents are because off camera he was asking me. I'm gonna tell him what they mean, what the sort of opportunity is, and why the risks are quite high if you don't know what you're doing. So let's go and have a talk about it and let's get into the video. So we're replying to that comment, Nick, about rent to rents. What are your questions you got? You said you had some questions.
Think straight up, what is rent to rent?
So what is rent to rent? So rent to rent essentially is where you rent a property off one person. You know I've got some single lets? Yeah. You then take that property, divide it up into bedrooms and then rent it out on a bedroom basis. That's one example. So you might take a property that you rent for, if you look at one of my ones in Corby, where I've rented it out for £1,000 a month. If you rented out the individual bedrooms of 4, you would probably generate about £2,000 a month. But the issue is that you also have to pay the bills. So the council tax is probably 130, 140, electricity and gas are probably about 150, maintenance voids, all those sort of things also come into this contract. And what will essentially happen is that you rent it out for 2,000 and you'd have a margin of about £500 a month to make profit. So it relies on you very heavily to have quite a high level of occupancy in order to make sure you're making the money. Now, if you looked at that particular deal, if you were able to get a 5th bedroom out of it, then you would probably be looking a bit better. You'd be looking at like having 3 bedrooms to pay the rent and the bills and 2 bedrooms for profit. So you can see how you might be able to make £800 a month, but that's not including voids really. So once the voids are taken into consideration, I think you're probably going to make somewhere between 400 and 600. You have to manage it all yourself. You have to keep the costs as low as possible. So there's lots of reasons that it's quite difficult to make money out of it. And you've heard me on the phone to people who are struggling in that industry. And the reason they're struggling is because capitalism already has taken care of a lot of the money. For example, as a landlord who's renting out a single property, my mortgage might only be, I don't know, on that one in Corby, let's use that as the example, right? That mortgage would be £400 a month or £300 a month. And as such, I'm already leveraging a lot of that money, right? So if I was to do it as a HMO, I would probably have half of it as profit. Yeah. Whereas if I'm already taking a good proportion of that as profit for me as a landlord, it only leaves the person that's renting off me with a very, very small margin comparable to the whole deal. So that's where that's what it is. It's taking a property and essentially changing its use. People also do it with holiday accommodation, so turning it into Airbnbs, things like that. There's lots of rules in Airbnbs and stuff like that. If you're doing apartments, for example, some blocks won't let you do it. But yeah, that's in a nutshell what rent to rent is. Next question.
How is it? How much is it going to cost to get into it?
How much is it going to cost to get into it?
What would you recommend me to?
Okay, so 2 questions. Would I recommend you getting into it? How much would it cost to get into it? So, in terms of cost to get into it, I think you're looking at probably a month's rent. I mean, it depends on what you can negotiate with the landlord, right? So if you negotiated with me, at the moment, the rental market's absolutely booming. You wouldn't be able to negotiate with me one bit. So if you came to me and went, oh, I want 3 months rent-free period, I want this, I want that, I'd be like, no way. I'll just rent it to someone else, right? This sounds like a lot of complexity for not a lot of extra money. You're actually reducing my returns. So it very much depends on how much you've got to get into it. I think you would probably be looking between £5,000 and £10,000 because you would need your contracts drawn up, you need that, all that done. Then you would need insurance, you'd need to make sure that you had a deposit. The landlord's almost certainly going to take a deposit off you. They're almost certainly going to take a month or 2 months rent up front if you're going to be doing something a little bit different. I know myself, if I was being put into this sort of situation, I would want more money, not less, because I think that ultimately there's more risk for me as a landlord than just renting out on a single let. I think that would be the sort of cost, between 5,000 and 10,000. I think that's why it's attractive to people, right? Like, because it's got a low barrier to entry. Yeah. And it can be billed on the internet, on YouTube, on things like this, as a good way to create passive income. But it really does sort of hark back to the fact that lots of people that I know that have done rent to rents are looking to get rid of their rent to rents. And if it's that profitable, why are they looking to get rid of them, right? Like, I can't understand that. You could say it doesn't serve your purpose, but you know, as a businessman, as a capitalist, if I create a system and a process that's really, really profitable, I replicate, right? I replicate and scale. Like when we built our taxi business, we worked out a profit margin, and then we scaled. Yeah. You know, my intention with Fired is we work out a margin and then we scale. I don't understand why you would work out a margin and then sell, like or get rid of, or just give up. I mean, that to me is a misnomer, right? That's a red flag for me. So I've never done rent to rent. Let me be clear to everybody on here, I've never done a rent to rent. I've had them proposed to me, both as a landlord and as somebody who's trying to sell me a deal. And on all occasions I look at it and go, I can't see how this really works for me. Now with service accommodation, I could probably see the margin, right? Like there are huge margins in service accommodation. I could probably see that. But with the HMO model, I can't really see the margin being strong enough for you to take the risk, for example.
So I'm thinking after hearing that, maybe rent to rent's not my thing.
No.
If I want to get into property, maybe then, so like, where do you think the best place to start?
So for yourself, I think, for example, the best place to start is going to be to purchase your first property. I think people forget that a lot of the gains in property are made from the capital appreciation, right? Like if you look at mine last year, and I know we had this conversation where I gained about £300,000 worth of capital within my properties. That was a huge proportion of the gain. And even on years where it's a bit more slim, maybe like 3%, right? Like 3%, still gonna be 90 grand of capital appreciation on 3 million. And that's really where a lot of the money comes from. Yes, there's cash flow, but the capital appreciation is the other part of the formula. So I think you have to benefit from that as well. I wouldn't want you to necessarily invest and not benefit from the capital appreciation as well. So then it would be up to you. I think you could either look at your first home and buying something that you would live in, and maybe rent out a spare room like we've discussed before, or you could look at getting your first property that you would do as a rental. Either way, I think you can get into property for about £25,000, right? I think that between 10 and 25,000, because if you were buying a £100,000 house and you were putting a 10% deposit down, you'd only need 10 grand. Yeah. So I think you can get into it for about that. Or if you're looking for your first buy to let, £100,000 property, 25 grand. I think if you look at it and go, well, a rent to rent, I'm going to need between 5 and 10. And if you're diligent enough to save up between 5 and 10, you're probably diligent enough to save up between 10 and 20. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And just putting everything aside for a year, for 1 year, to just purchase and own over renting, I think that would be better. But what are your thoughts? What does that sound like to you? I mean,
that second plan sounds better.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily more reachable. I think it's just more in tune with the market. Yeah, yeah. Right. Like if you want, I think it's more reachable, obviously, for the lower amount. But if you develop the habit and you're already investing, you're already saving, you're already getting there, it's quite easy to then just go a little bit further. Do you know what I mean? And for me, I think ownership over rent to rents are always going to be superior. Yeah. Otherwise, I can't understand why people who've done rent to rents are getting rid of them and buying things.
Yeah.
Like, I can't understand why you would do that. You would just scale. But guys, I guess the question is, what are your opinions, right? Like, we're doing this for the video. What's your opinions? We're going to sit here and eat some nice food. We're in a pub in Oxfordshire. As I said, this is our Friday video, which was supposed to be, which came out, what, Thursday night?
Yeah, yesterday evening.
Yesterday evening. Was that you or me that did that wrong?
Who knows?
Who knows? It could be either of us. One way or another, we got that sorted and we're going to release this one tonight. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you want any more information on rent to rents, I'm probably not the best person to speak to, if I'm honest. I haven't done it. So, you know, all I can do is comment on what people are telling me. And as a capitalist, as a business person, as somebody who can understand where your margins need to be, I think the margins are very slim. And if they're that slim, then you're probably in for some pain at some point. I'd much rather own the asset, no question. And if I thought that there was lots of money in rent to rents, just to be clear, I would sell all my properties and do loads of rent to rents, because I don't need to own them. If I can sell £3.5 million worth of properties, get £1 million and do 100 rent to rents really profitably,
yeah,
and they were all going to make me a grand a month, then I'd make 100 grand a month.
Yeah.
That'd be better, right? But I don't think it's as simple as that, so, and I can't see how it is. So with that in mind, I'm not going to be jumping into rent to rents anytime soon. And if I was you, I probably wouldn't either. Guys, comment in the videos. Let me know if you're doing a rent to rent successfully. I would love to know. Otherwise, guys, we'll see you on Monday. This has been Friday's video. See you soon.